Disclaimer: I do not have a lot of footage of toilets, and in general it's not a good idea to hang around in toilets with a camera. Therefore, most of the footage in this video will be only semi-relevant to the subject matter. I hope you understand. One of the most consistent complaints I hear about the London Underground is that there are so few toilets. So why is that, and what can be done? The first point to make is that the network does have quite a few toilets, but many stations do not. They're also seemingly rather illogically located. For instance, why does Barkingside Station get them when the extremely busy West End station of Oxford Circus doesn't? What it comes down to is the way the network was originally designed, if you can call it designed. Conventional railway stations historically did tend to be built with toilets. You might have a long wait for your train, or you might have a long walk from the station to your destination. But the London Underground is not a conventional railway. It's a metro. In fact, it's the original metro. In fact, the term metro comes from the Metropolitan Railway, the first underground line. A metro operates differently from a conventional railway. The dividing line is admittedly vague, as we'll see in a bit, but in terms of the passenger experience it's like this. A metro features frequent stops, short distances apart. Journeys tend to be short and services frequent. On the deep-level tube lines in central London, trains can be as little as 2 minutes apart. The primary purpose is urban transportation, getting people to work. When they get off the train, they should have a very short distance to their final destination. Stations on such networks tend to have minimal facilities. Firstly, because land is at a premium in city centres, so you don't want your station to use any more space than it has to. And secondly, because the expectation is that people aren't going to be spending a lot of time there, and they won't have to go far to reach their ultimate destination. Put simply, when most of the network was built, it was assumed that toilets wouldn't be necessary. I realise that there's a significant proportion of the population for whom holding it in isn't really an option, but when most of the network was built, such questions of accessibility were not really on anyone's mind, I fear. Bear in mind that the core of the network dates from between 1863 and the Second World War. Another thing that's changed since then is that there are a lot fewer public toilets. It used to be the case that even if there wasn't a toilet at the station, there would be one on the street nearby. But local authorities hate public toilets. They're expensive, they get vandalised, people use them for, shall we say, illicit purposes, they need to be staffed. They are an easy target when the time comes to cut spending. Which means that, unlike for much of the 20th century, passengers these days can't rely on being able to spend a penny near the station. So how come those underground bods could put toilets at, say, Epping, but not, say, Holborn? Well, many of those outer London and outside London stations were built by conventional railway companies for conventional railway services, only to be taken over by the underground later. That's what happened on the Central Line out in Essex, and on the High Barnet branch of the Northern Line, for instance. Similarly, once the Metropolitan Line got out of central London, it operated as a conventional railway. In the suburbs, land was cheaper, so stations could afford to spread out a bit, and therefore they could have more comprehensive facilities. Of course, the fact that a station has a toilet doesn't necessarily mean the toilet will be open. They're often only open certain hours, or when staff are available. They may not be accessible, or may not include baby-changing facilities. Or there might only be facilities for the disabled. Or, from an accessibility perspective, they might not be easy to get to from platform level. This is often the case in the larger national rail stations. TfL does provide information on their website, including a list of facilities at each station, and this handy map of the network. So, great swathes of the network have no toilets, people want toilets, what can be done? The answer is, unfortunately, not much. When stations are rebuilt, they tend to get toilets added in. That's what happened at Hounslow East and Bank, for instance, and along the Elizabeth line. But adding toilets to an existing station, particularly in the centre of town, is kind of difficult. As I say, stations were built to take up as little space as possible. Including space for toilets, as well as the queues to get into them, can impact the station's primary function, getting people to and from their trains. One could expand the station, but that would involve acquiring more land, which in central London would come to millions of pounds per station. Putting the toilet underground would involve digging, which would be similarly expensive. Not to mention the technical challenges of putting a toilet potentially below the levels of the sewers. I have no idea how that would even work. Should the tube network have more toilets? Yes, absolutely. Will it? Probably not. Well, not anytime soon. I guess everyone's just going to have to cross their legs until then. Well, I do hope you enjoyed this ablutionary tale from the tube. If so, please do leave a like and consider subscribing for more. I would like, as always, to thank my donors on Ko-fi, on Patreon, and here on YouTube for your support. You are the cistern to my bowl. And I'll see you all again very soon. Cheerio.